Hey, Erica, is everybody muted? Because this seems awfully quiet. Or,
Yeah, from what I can see, everybody's got their mute on.
okay, it's fine. I was just like, it was unusually quiet, so I just want to make sure my stuff is
Actually-
working.
The calm before the storm, John. I was going to ask, I don't see Al, Councilman Gubitosi. Are you on, Al? Because we want to start at 6:30. You might be on mute, Al.
I don't see him on the list.
Okay. Let's give him a minute. I know he's around, but I could text him. Usually by the time I text, he's already on. Okay.
What do you say?
I didn't hear back from here. Councilman Gubitosi, are you on?
Mr. Mayor, I just got a text from Councilman Gubitosi saying he can't get in. So I'm sure it has nothing to do with the meeting limit, because I'm sure that was changed. So I don't know what's going on.
Erica, could you
Is he
email
using
him?
the wrong link?
He's on.
He's on. Oh, there he is.
There he
I
is.
see him. Okay, good. Okay, call the meeting to order, please. Do a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic for which it
which
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
and
justice for all.
Okay, good. Erica,
Okay. I wish to announce that the 48-hour notice as required under the Open Public Meetings Act was emailed to the Asbury Park Press, the Co-Star, and the New Co-Star on December the 16th of 2021, that a copy has been placed on the bulletin board in the borough office, and that a copy has been filed with the borough clerk. Mr. Bunnell? Randy?
here.
Mr. Gubitosi?
Here,
Mr. Sexsmith?
Here,
Mr. Weber?
Here.
Mayor Fox?
Here. Welcome, everybody, to our third meeting of the year, the new year. We are, as you see, and we have been back in a remote format, excuse me, since December. Our last 3 days in Bradley Beach, we've had 0 new COVID cases, which is extremely encouraging. It follows kind of the trend of the state and most of the nation. In December, we were averaging about 8 cases a day, so this is really good news. So I reviewed this with our OEM group earlier today, and they are of the opinion that we can go back to a live meeting format. So we're going to encourage live meetings for commissions, committees, if they so desire, beginning February 14th. If anybody following the news, you'll know that the governor has announced that there's a mask. They're going to rescind the masks in schools, but that begins on, I think, March 7th to give, I guess, administrations a chance to transition over. So encouraging news. We got to still be vigilant, but you know, this is extremely encouraging from my perspective. So I appreciate everybody's conformance and vigilance, and I certainly empathize with anyone that's had any personal issues or illness due to the pandemic. We have no ordinances for introduction or adoption tonight. We have one workshop on a pretty important topic, affordable housing. We've been working on this for some time. and we're poised to begin the process of introducing ordinances and really take the next steps. So this will be kind of a workshop discussion. I'll just start with a few comments on, and really break it into two kind of buckets. One is status, where we are, and then the second is next steps. Pat Cucchiaro of the Wiener Law Group and Jennifer Beam, and Jennifer's been our planner for some time now, working for Avakian, have been working with the administration since 2021 on formalizing and operationalizing this whole affordable housing plan for the borough. So we're going to just, again, give you a couple status points and then foreshadow next steps. Not to say this hasn't been worked on prior to 2021. There had been steps taken in prior years, but we've really tried to come up with a systemic approach and get this to where it needs to be. So from a status perspective, there's 2 or 3 points we want to make. First, Councilor Cucchiaro provided myself and the council a briefing at the end of December. He let us know that we had been granted a request for temporary immunity. Ms. Beam let us know that she had provided a draft housing element and a fair share plan detailing vacant land adjustment and was working on that. So she provided that to the Fair Share Housing Center, which concurred that we probably have a lower obligation in terms of number of units going forward, but they have not agreed on final numbers. And that's going to be something that is part of the next steps. But there was concurrence that it's not just a straight formula, that we are probably below that. The other news is we do have a special master, and that's the term that is given to somebody appointed by the court who has expertise in affordable housing. It's Mary Beth Lonergan. So we're happy about that. That was a key piece of information because we need to have that partnership with the courts as we deal with the Fair Share Housing Center and we develop our plans. So that was very important and a big step. Last Friday on February 4th, Rachel, and I don't have her last name, from the Fair Share Housing Center, Ms. Lonergan, Jen and Ron met to review the draft consent order and ordinance. Ron had developed an ordinance for us that we will bring forward in, I would say in all probability, the next council meeting, if we can get the feedback from both the Fair Share Housing Center and from the special master. They may want to tweak a few things in the ordinance, but we're hoping to get that pretty expeditiously. They did give us the go-ahead to introduce and adopt the ordinance establishing a trust fund. And again, we forwarded that document so that they can take a final look and make any minor adjustments, hopefully. So that ordinance will establish an affordable housing trust fund, which will allow the borough to collect development fees for residential and non-residential development at 1.5 and 2.5% of the equalized assessed value of those respective properties. Currently, the borough doesn't collect residential fees because we don't have a trust fund, and we do collect non-residential fees, but we forward those to the state in accordance with municipal land use laws. So that trust gives us the ability to begin to collect those funds, which we then would apply and utilize as part of our affordable housing plan going forward. Additionally, we have provided a lot of documents to both the special master and the Fair Share Housing Center around an outline of our fair share plan, a vacant land use adjustment report, consent order, and draft affordable housing trust fund ordinance, as I said, and some mapping and photography of our town. From a next step stamp, so that's the status. So we're in a position where, again, effectively, we're ready, we're poised to put an ordinance out there. We've got the people, the support people in the context, not only our internal support being Councilor Cucchiaro and Jen Beam and the municipal administration group. But we also have the special master name, which is very important, and the fair share housing person. So we've got hopefully the nucleus of getting this done. We're in the process of so now moving towards next steps. We're in the process of coming to an agreement between all the parties on a realistic development potential. They call it an RDP. In simple terms, it's the number of units we're going to have to provide within the borough going forward. This plan is through 2025. They have not adopted a new requirement beyond that yet, and there's a lot of bantering back and forth in the state about what's next for affordable and fair share housing in the context of administering it. The fair share housing centers, they are going to look at developable land within the borough and give us their thoughts on the number they think we need to provide in terms of affordable housing. And we're also, we've sent both the court master and the fair share housing center copies of our section 451, which is our borough's affordable housing ordinances are in there. Our 451 is our land use ordinance. So we do anticipate there could be changes to that ordinance before this is over. So another next step is we are going to follow up with the court master and the fair share housing center rep on the information we just submitted. So Jen Beam and Ron Cucchiaro will continue to work through with the newly appointed special master to determine our fair share obligation and to secure her support. So we want to make sure she's aligned both for our housing element and fair share plan. Also then to come up with an agreed upon number of units that have to be built. And then from there, we formulate a plan, housing element and fair share plan to address the obligation. And then we adopt any zoning as a requirement of the court process. So the question that I do have for Jen is a timeline question. Do we think we can get this done in the next 3 months, 2 months, 6 months? And that question hasn't, she hasn't answered that question. I think it's reasonable to have it done in the next 3 to 4 months, but I want to wait before we commit to that. But the good news here is I think we're on a good path. We've got the right parties in place. So I finally think we can get some traction on this. So I'll now turn it over to any of the council to see if they have any comments or questions or more comments. And then we can certainly turn it over to the public to see if they have any questions.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any, real comments on this other than that it's good to see that we're finally getting ourselves into compliance with this this long-standing process. And it would be my other comment, sort of generic, is it would be awfully nice if the legislature decided to step up and do something with this instead of letting this wander around in the courts and just not providing any guidance to anybody. It's turning it into an astoundingly painful process when I don't think it really should be. But that's my only comments.
Yeah, to build on that, Councilman Sexsmith and I attended a mini seminar on this in November at the League of Municipalities, and was probably one of the most attended seminars in the couple of days of seminars. And it was frustrating because there's just a lot of consternation and back and forth, and it is a frustrating it's a frustrating situation to a process that you'd like to see move forward, and we participate in and get it right. So I share your frustration, Councilman. Any Councilman Weber or Gubitosi or Vanel, any comments or?
Well, yeah, I have a comment, Mr. Mayor. Just the workshop says affordable housing ordinance, but we don't really have an ordinance. So I mean, I know you just said a lot, but I wonder if we're going to be back here workshopping an ordinance when we finally have it. Is that the
No,
plan, or are we just going to pass it once we have this?
No, we do have an ordinance. We reviewed that ordinance on December 28th. Mr.
I know, but
Kuchera.
we're gonna have to pass subsequent ordinances, and we don't seem to have that. I mean, you said
Well,
that's gonna be
Well,
forthcoming soon.
we start with this, the first ordinance of the trust fund.
Mhm.
We anticipate that both fair share housing and the special master are going to have negligible, if any, adjustments to that. So whether we workshop the ordinance in the next meeting and actually, go through the elements of that, we can decide that. But we do have an ordinance. It's pretty standard. And again, there's not an expectation that we're going to have a lot of changes to it.
Good enough, thanks.
Hey, Mr. Cannon, Councilman Weber's question brings up,
We lost you, Tim. I don't know where he went.
whenever we pass or the special master and
Tim, you're breaking up.
Tim, I don't know if you can hear us, but you kind of went blank here. I don't know if you're re-signing in or not, but your name's there, but that's it.
You froze, Tim, and this is why I'm a big advocate for the chat, because people could always put their question in the chat, and just saying.
Well, Mr. Mayor, while we wait for Councilman or Council President Sexsmith to rejoin, I was also going to just say, number one, I appreciate the fact that, we are working to have workshops on discussions like this. This particular discussion, it seems like it'll be somewhat abbreviated, in part because my understanding is these ordinances are largely statutory language, right? There's not an awful lot we would do to make suggestions and modifications. Right.
That's correct, Councilman Gubitosi.
So maybe what I'll do is I'll just echo Councilman Sexsmith's earlier comments that it's great to see us making progress, long overdue. And I know there have been residents in the community who have been advocating for us to get here for a number of years. So I'm glad to see us finally making these strides. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Council President Sexsmith, are you back?
He's having issues with his internet, and he asked that we move on, and then he'll be back on the meeting in about 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay, if, Councilman Manel, if you have any comments or no, or yes, or?
No comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have, I think we should probably, because we've been talking about this for months, I think it's probably appropriate to open it up for any public comments for, maybe 10 or 15 minutes and see if people have comments or questions. Yes, Mr. Shuck. Push her on mute, Bill. I think you need to push her on mute.
I
There you
need
go.
to unmute myself. I'm sorry. Yes. Am I on now?
You are.
Okay, good. Thank you. In all honesty, I find it appalling that back in 2017, the planning board with its professionals drafted an affordable housing plan. We incorporated fees and, into the structure and many other items. It was moved to the mayor and council only to find out that it was tabled for further review and then never came back. I just hope that this does not happen again. In fact, Councilman Gubitosi was part of it. I believe Councilman Weber was on it. And this is why I'm surprised that it never went through and we're going through this process all over again and spending money again. Mayor, I just want to thank you for, you know, finding this out and making sure that we do have something in place.
Okay, you're welcome. And I don't think Councilman Gubitosi was on the council till
No,
2000.
he was on the planning board is what Bill showed
Planning
me.
board, okay, got it.
And if I could
I'm
provide
sorry,
a little
sorry
bit
for
of,
that.
it's okay, if I could provide a little bit of clarity, is my recollection is that the council did what we were supposed to do at that stage, and we thought that that was it. People were like, okay, and then we found out, I don't know, a year later or something, that somebody didn't file paperwork with the state, and the next steps never took place. Maybe the attorney or somebody else could add a little flavor there, but there was something like that. I don't think the ball was dropped at the council level, although we probably should have made sure that this, whatever was supposed to get filed, got filed, and that didn't happen by the administration then.
It
Okay.
was never adopted by the mayor and council.
And Mr. Shunk, I'd add to not only your comment, and it's correct, the planning board at that time thought we had, you know, taken the appropriate actions, but I believe we reviewed at least one and maybe a couple of large applications where we were all under the impression they were subject to COA legislation at that point, only to find out after the fact that, as you mentioned, it was not adopted by the council at that time. So again, that's why I compliment the mayor and the professionals that have identified this as an oversight and are finally moving us forward.
Yeah, and I think Council President Sexsmith wanted Councilor, where is he? Cannon, there he is, to comment. And then I think we have one or two other people to comment. But go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, I mean, so
Cannon.
you did indeed adopt an ordinance with an affordable housing trust fund and certain standards in it. It's in chapter 451 of the Borough Code. You guys did what you're supposed to. So there's a difference between that and having this framework in place within the town and then receiving substantive certification from the court, which is the COA process by which you make yourself immune from builder's remedy suits. So you guys have standards in place, and you've done, you did what you were supposed to do on the municipal level, as Councilman Weber said. But then the thing that was never filed was the actual action to get the certification from the court, even though you had it in place. And so obviously since that time, the special masters have been prosecuting these cases since 2015. There's different standards, so things might be slightly different from what you guys passed in 17 versus what's negotiated with Fair Share now, which might require some tweaking of those ordinances. But you have indeed had that framework in place. You just haven't had the legal immunity, which is the the capstone on that process. So that's what everyone was referring to there. That's the ultimate procedural story.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Councilor. Mr. Cohen.
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 3rd Avenue. Yes, there was an ordinance passed by the planning board, and there was an affordable housing plan that was passed, but it was never followed up on, to Mr. Cannon's points, by the Engelstad administration and the business administrator at that time. That allowed a window to be open for the 301 Main Street project and the Auto Tech project, which, according to my calculations, at a 15% set aside for rentals, would have supplied us 4 units at 301 and 2.7, or they round up to 3 units at Auto Tech. So unfortunately, when you get your number, in the best of all worlds, we would have been able to subtract those 7 units. Unfortunately now, because that hasn't been done, and I do blame that on the previous administration and their lackadaisical nature, that's why it wasn't completed. And that's why the residents of the borough of Bradley Beach have been denied those 7 units. And if we're making Bradley Beach affordable, Mayor, those units are valuable. And
Yep.
I find it very distressing.
Yep, and that's why we're going to focus on this and get it done.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, let me see if there's anybody else who has a comment. I think I saw a hand. Nope. I don't have anybody else commenting, so unless somebody else that I'm missing. Okay, nobody else commenting. So we'll close this out. Again, folks, everybody out there, we're really, I think we've got some traction, and I think we're going to see action here pretty quickly, and hopefully we get ourselves on the right track on this. So thanks, everybody, for your comments. We'll move to agenda item number 6, presentations. There's no presentations tonight, no petitions. Move to number 7, like to make a motion to approve the council business meeting minutes of 1/25/22. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
I think he's still off.
Okay. Mr. Weber,
Yes,
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session for 1/25/22. Do I have a second?
second,
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith? Mr. Weber,
yes,
Mayor Fox?
Yes. Okay, agenda item number 8, which is public comments, questions, and any reading of public emails. Erica, please keep us apprised if there's any public emails
I
pertaining to
do
the
not have any public emails at this time.
Okay, so pertaining to the 2/8/22 agenda only. There's 5-minute limit, single instance, and start with Mr. Greenberg.
Hi, Don Greenberg, 302 Park Place Ave. I have a question on the agenda, item 15, executive session. The first 2 items, online media policy and volunteer policy, they do not seem to fall under any exception in 10.4.12b. There's no privacy issues here since we're talking about policy, not a specific person. And the same with B8 of that same statute. So I'm wondering why these are being held in executive session when they don't meet any of the criteria for an exemption.
I believe they qualify under personnel. Because there are personnel related changes in those policies. I'll defer to Councilor Cannon, but I believe that's how that is.
Well, it actually reads it has to be a specific person, not policy. And policy, by its very nature, exempts specific person. You're talking about creating a policy for the town, okay, for online media policy and personnel volunteer policy. But according to 10.4.12b, 3 and 8, it must be a specific person in order for it to qualify for an exemption. And I'm sure Greg will correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I think that's a little bit of an overstatement. I mean, so if we were negotiating with the union, that's not a person, right? So,
But that's a different statute of 8, right? That's a different
part in there. I mean, I'll point out this. I mean, we're talking about draft policies that are going to be presented to unions, and the matters are attorney-client privileged in draft form until we have the final policy to present to our employees as to what it is. You could argue, and we can argue that personnel. I agree with you. It's arguable and it's interpreted different ways. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're talking with our attorney and an administrator about implementing policies that aren't in their final form, and the employees really aren't entitled to know or the public aren't really. I mean, the public is a byproduct of that, but it's the management's entitled to talk to their lawyer about what policies they're implementing behind closed doors without having everyone watch us. I mean, I'm sure you'd agree with that.
So you're saying it falls under attorney-client privilege because the policies aren't formulated yet in their final form?
That's why, Kim, these are not final policies, are they?
No, they are not. We are discussing them, and we have to discuss different things if we want to implement them or not.
Yeah, but I don't know how we discuss possible restrictions on employees that then don't happen out in public, to be honest, Mr. Greenberg.
I've never done it.
I understand
Okay,
your
so-
argument under the text of the statute, but I'll stand on that,
So what you're saying is you're going to have these discussions, and then once the policies are finalized, they're made public?
Would the executive minutes be available for inspection?
Or once the policy itself it has been finalized, yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course, the policy is a matter. You can go over our handbook right now with all the policies of the borough in it.
Right. And then will the executive minutes be made public as well?
I have to reserve judgment on that. So the substance of the conversations there, like if we're talking about how this might affect individual positions or reveal the employees, then might be a different animal. I don't know. I'd have to see the substance of it. You're asking me to rule on something that doesn't exist at the moment. If we're just
Okay.
talking about policies and things like that, and they're not part of otherwise related to collective bargaining negotiations. I mean, you can see I go down a million different rabbit holes here, but
Sure.
it very, like, if it just results in a policy, then it's very likely just, going to releasable at the end of the day. But if it
Okay.
gets into how that affects individual people's positions and responsible for technology or something, then I don't know, maybe some of it's redacted for personnel reasons, but it doesn't exist at this moment. So it's very hard for me to say.
All right, that's fair, Greg. Thank you, appreciate that. And the other thing is, if we're going to go back to live meetings, Mr. Mayor, we have the technology to do them on Zoom as well. If you look tonight, you're going to see there's 100 people in this meeting. Looks like at least there was. Yeah, there's 4 pages here at 25 each. And you're not going to fit 100 people in that hall all the time because people just can't make it. So I would propose that we open the meetings up to both Zoom and public. The technology does exist, and it gives more inclusiveness to the town. You get to participate in your town government a lot more when these Zoom meetings are available. I mean, I myself live, an hour away. I have a summer home there. I live an hour away, and sometimes I can't get down there for a meeting. And as you know, I like to attend and speak. So just wondering if we could look into that.
Thank you, Don. I've been asking for that since 2015.
Resume.
problem.
That's good.
I appreciate it, Don. That's great.
You're welcome, Randy.
Before Zoom. Yeah, it's about, there's about 16 people on a page, so it's about 60 people, but understand your point. Okay, thank you. Ms. Meadow.
Well, you didn't answer my question. Are you going to look into having that done? And is that something we can do?
Something we'll assess.
And when will that assessment be brought to the public as a yes or a no?
I'll get back to you specifically. How's that?
Okay, okay. Shoot me an email.
Thank you, Ms. Meadow. You need to go off of.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. Nancy Meadow, Ocean Park Condominiums. And I want to echo to Mr. Greenberg that I was told under no way were we going to have the Zoom and in-person meetings. So it's interesting to me that all of a sudden now that a mail is inquiring, that now we're going to reassess. But it tends to be reassess means maybe and no. Also, I had no idea that the employee handbook that was approved at the last meeting is available to the public. I certainly didn't see it. But more importantly, what I wanted to comment about, or I should say equally as important, is on the agenda, there's a resolution 2022-16, 62-62, and it references RS 10:4-18, which I have no idea what that is. And I went to our website to try to find out what that is. And I called Borough Hall and spoke to someone who so wanted to help me, but also did not know what that was. So I'm just going to speak to what it is that I did understand in that resolution. And if I say something inappropriate, Mr. Cannon, please correct me regarding that RS number thing, which I'm sure you will be happy to correct me. So it's great to me that we're discontinuing for the first half of the year those standing committee meetings. But I don't understand. It seems to me you've acquiesced and realized that they're not going to work, and we the people don't want them. So why not just do away with them, be in accordance with your own ordinance? What is it, 58B? What, I don't even remember anymore after saying it so many times, and just go back to 2 business meetings a month. Here we are with this one thrown together. We don't even have a bill list to pay. So we're not paying people on time, and we already don't pay people on time. We are just, in my opinion, steamrolling this. So I don't know if I want to say to the council, please vote for this, because 6 more business meetings, or I guess at this point it'll be 4, are better than none. But I'd really like to see the full year schedule, as well as 2 meetings per month for the months that you've only authorized 1 meeting. Again, that's in dispute with our ordinance. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, and RS 10:4-18 is the Open Public Meetings Act.
Really?
So that's why that's on there, because that's part of the act to publish and let people know when meetings are. So,
I don't
that.
think so.
yeah, it is. Yeah, next I'll take
Mr.
Lauren
Cannon,
Egbert.
could you check that out for me, please?
Hello, this is Lauren Egbert. This may seem a small point, but I think it's important that we're accurate about how many people are attending this meeting. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. It's the, I am counting 4 screens at 25 people a screen. So I think that.
No, you're right. I thought we had 16 on the screen. We have 20. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And it
Sorry
just,
about that.
that's okay. But just to frame the discussion about the importance of having the possibility of appearing by Zoom, I do think it is certainly in the public interest to have as much of the town participate in these meetings as possible. And I too would very much like to see the meetings be both in person and by Zoom. The other thing that was also of concern to me is that we do have in our ordinance, the way I read it, and I could be wrong, but 2 council meetings a month. And I think that
Right.
that is also important for public participation.
Yeah, that's correct. The intent when we're trying to move towards a standing meeting committee was to pass a resolution to temporarily take that. I'm sorry, I'm missing the word. To temporarily move off of that, and that's not the right word. The word's failing me. To temporarily have this process, assess how it goes, and then we would change the ordinance, because changing an ordinance is costly. It costs money to make those changes. So that's why we would have gone in that direction. We would have just temporarily suspended, was the word I'm looking for, through a resolution, and then assessed how it went after 6 months. So that was the intent.
I'm sorry, but is it possible or accepted or legal practice to suspend an ordinance for a period of time by way of resolution?
My understanding is it is. Yeah.
I see.
Yep.
Just so everybody knows, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there is a head count. Right now, there's 83 people.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Cohen.
Thomas Cohen, 612 3rd Avenue. Mayor, did I miss something? It appears that you skipped item number 3. Am I correct? I don't remember the clerk reading out the Open Public Act statement.
Yeah, she did.
You did? Okay, great. I just had a question for Mr. Cannon on this executive session. Item number 15, you say pursuant to NJSA 10:413. But when I read that actual statement, it says that until the public body shall first adopt a resolution at a meeting to which the public shall be admitted. Well, there is no resolution in the agenda, even though there was at the improper meeting on February 3rd. So you can't go into executive session unless you pass a resolution. It also states that you must share the general nature of the subject to be discussed, and stating precisely as possible the time and what circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session shall be disclosed to the public. So we don't have any of that information, and we have no resolution. So you can't have item 15 tonight.
TJ,
Yes.
if you check the minutes after I do them and after they're approved, there is always a resolution to go into executive session for the previous meeting. I do a resolution, just so you know.
But there's no resolution on the agenda to be voted on before you go to executive session.
Okay, I can start putting that on there.
Why don't you let Mr.
Okay,
Counselor-
absolutely, yep.
Sure.
We vote every time to adjourn to executive session. And
You don't vote by resolution. There needs to be a resolution right here along with resolution 2022-62. There should be 2022-63, a resolution to go into executive session.
Well, why don't we, I mean, Mr. Cohen, with all, you know, I don't know what to tell you. You come here with a hyper technical, I don't know. I'll let the clerk speak for herself. I mean, it's ultimately the clerk's job to prepare the agenda that you come and essentially rip apart every time. So I'll just let the clerk speak for herself. I don't have a legal answer for you. You're bringing up technical parts of the statute. I agree with you. There's towns do it different ways. Google different towns. Some people do an oral resolution pursuant to McGovern versus Rutgers. Others pass an actual written resolution. I mean, how about you just tell us how you'd like us to do it so that you don't sue us anymore? And we'll just do it that way. Because I don't want to debate you legally at every single council meeting about the labels. And the clerk has a 1 year on the job and is doing her best. So, why don't you just give us an instruction manual on how you'd like us to do it? And we'll do it that way so we can avoid future lawsuits and wasting all of our time. Like I'll have lunch and you can tell me how you'd like us to do it.
I don't believe I'm wasting anyone's time, sir, but it's about consistency. Now, at the February 3rd meeting, you had the
consistently
resolution.
vote ourselves to adjourn to executive session every meeting. And after which we do that, you often ask me, Mr. Cannon, how long will this take? Right? So this rule, right? And we have that conversation. So I'm just trying to be genuine with you, to be honest, because I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just trying to be genuine. I feel like you come here and try to surprise me and the clerk at every single meeting, and I'd rather just have lunch with you and you tell me how you want me to do it.
So the resolution must be specific as to when what the meeting's about, the nature of the meeting, and when the minutes of that meeting will be available to the public. That has to be in the resolution. You can't just say, hey, we're going into executive session. Let's have a resolution. It has to be specific.
I know, and that conflicts with the clerk's
statute that you mentioned.
I know, and reading it in a vacuum, I agree, it says that. But then there's also the clerk statute that they have to be, minutes have to be provided on reasonable notice, and there's all kinds of conflicts of laws, which you and I talk about here all the time. So yes, hyper technically, according to your reading of that, yes, we could put a 2263 on there, but we vote every time. We tell you when it's going to be over, and the minutes are available at basically the next meeting. I mean, the 25th meeting minutes are available here, and you request them after every meeting, so you know when they're available. So I'm not trying to be difficult with you, but I mean, I don't know how to answer the hyper technical arguments you've made both in your lawsuits and here every other week, because every time I changed it. This is different from when you filed your lawsuit when we didn't have sufficient descriptions. So I've been changing it in response to you. I'd rather just have lunch with you and you tell me how you think would comply with the statute, so I don't have to deal with it.
Mr. Kennedy, it's been wrong the whole time when I have to ask each time, and now you changed it and you act like that's the cure. The cure is to do it properly. Submit a resolution for executive session, and I'll be happy to supply you with examples from other communities who do it properly.
And I can give you examples of communities where they do it just like this every single meeting. So I don't disagree with you that people do it differently, right? That's the argument that we're having. I'm not telling you there's a correct way to do this because towns do it different every single place. As long as it meets the requirements of the statute and the Open Public Meetings Act, then it flies, which you've tested now with 2 different lawsuits. Yes, so rather than have a third, I'd rather just have lunch with you if we could do that and stop wasting all the taxpayers' money. Because
I'm not wasting the money. It's my own money, sir.
Well, you don't pay me unless you're offering.
You don't pay our legal fees, Mr. Cohen.
Sir, I pay a retainer to the attorney who files the lawsuit. Doesn't seem like you're worried about my money, Mayor, because you're spending.
I know, and honestly, Mr. Cohen, if Mr. Lewis gives me permission to go to lunch together, because you have an attorney, he wants to come with us, I'll buy him lunch too. Let's just figure out how to do this so we don't have an argument every single council meeting, because I'm not adverse to anything that you're saying. If you want to get that hyper technical with it, I'm okay with it.
I'll be happy to email you what I believe is the proper submission, sir.
Okay, and I'm like, you have my phone number too,
Sure.
You and Mr. Lewis can call me together, but I don't want to do this with you every meeting because I otherwise respect you as a citizen, I feel like I'm arguing with you every meeting and, I'll give you the benefit of that most of at least half the time you're right. So let's just figure it out.
I've had 1,000 so far, sir, but we'll keep going. But thank you very much. I'll send you
your
that
stats
email.
and I'll buy you lunch. All right. Let's
Okay.
go.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions on the agenda, so we're going to move to the next agenda item, which again is ordinances. We don't have any ordinances for introduction or adoption tonight. Number 10 on the agenda, communications. There are no specific communications that need to be put out there tonight. So we'll go to resolutions, consent and individual first. There are no items on the consent agenda. We do have 5 individual resolutions. First is 2022-57. The appropriation reserve transfer 2020, the appropriation reserve transfer, I'm sorry, we have 6, not 5. Want to make a motion to approve 2022-57, the appropriation reserve transfer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Vanel,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose? Al?
He gave a thumbs up.
Okay,
Thumbs
great,
up.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, John. Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2022-58, requesting permission for the dedicated by rider for accumulated absences liability trust fund required by NJAC 5:30-15. Do I have a second?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a
Yes.
question? Can I get an explainer on this one first? Because I read the resolution and didn't have a time to get any further questions asked, but whoever is the best person to explain, can you please explain?
Yeah, I would say it's probably our CFO, but I know that Ms. Humphrey's been working with the CFO on some of these deals. Kim, is this something you can talk through?
So what happens is you're allowed from November, December, and then the first 3 months of the year, do an appropriation transfer if need be due to the budget needs. It seems as though there are budget items that we need to cover as bills came in from 2021, and you take them from one area and move them to another.
Ms. Humphrey, I'm actually speaking about number 58. Permission for, sorry, the dedicated rider for accumulated absences liability.
This one, sure.
Sorry.
Well, there you go. So for the other one, you guys
And
get
just
to
so you know,
what
I
that
would never
means.
vote and then ask for someone to explain.
Yeah.
I'm asking for the
You
explanation.
actually, I lost you guys. You actually froze, so I couldn't hear what you guys were doing.
Okay,
So I just
sorry.
heard CFO. So for 58, the dedication by rider. So what happens is you have accumulated absences. So in the work world, you have contracts and you have agreements that when someone retires or if they take a leave, that they're due a certain amount of money, which they've accumulated over the course of their employment. The best way to pay out these payments is by having an accumulated trust fund. In most places, that's how it's set up. And what that allows you to do is at the end of the year, if you have a salary and wage item that might have expenditures that weren't expended, you would move that over to the trust fund each year. That way it can fund if somebody retires or if there's some type of a finding where somebody gets their payout for accumulated time.
So is it accurate to say we were supposed to have this all the time and we haven't, and all these big payouts for people like leaving with and getting all their sick time, it should have been coming out of this fund?
I wouldn't use the word suppose, but it's a best practice to do so. And a majority of the towns would use this method, yes.
Okay. I appreciate that. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. You were in the middle of getting a second, so thanks.
Well, actually, Councilman Weber, I have one follow-up question that I was going to ask Ms. Humphrey. Kim, is there a dollar amount associated with this resolution?
No. This is getting permission to have the trust fund.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
That will be forthcoming, yes.
So I
So
guess
do we have a
second.
second? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2022-59 award of fair and open contract for Lincoln Financial Services Corporation for LoSAP Financial Advisor for 2022. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose?
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
Mayor Fox?
Yes. 2022-60 authorizing the Monmouth County Mosquito Control Division to conduct aerial mosquito control operations within the borough of Bradley Beach. I'd like to make a motion to approve this. Do I have a second?
Mr. Mayor, before we do, I wanted to thank our clerk, Erica, because Erica remembers that last year I asked a question that I would have asked again this year, but she beat me to the punch. And that is when I read this last year, and again, looking for the benefit of our residents, when you look at this, it basically is permitting the county to do mosquito spraying. And I just had a concern last year expressed as to, would we know of this? How would we know? Would it be communicated to the public? Make sure that, our public is not exposed to any particular pesticides. And thank you, Erica, for following up to confirm. And I know it's stated in item 1C on this resolution that we're giving them permission, but they would contact our police and we would be appropriately able to notify the public. So
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that said, I'll second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Fox.
Yes. 2022-61 amendments to the resolution 2022-51 and 2022-52 to include a drug and alcohol and domestic violence in the titles. Make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
Yes.
Mayor Fox.
Yes. 2022-62 amendment to resolution 2021-309, approval of 2022 meeting dates to reflect title of meetings as council business meetings from February to June. Make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Mr. Mayor, this is one, I sorry to interrupt, but I'd like to encourage a little discussion on this particular resolution. And there's a number of things going on here, a number of variables, and I just want to make sure the public is aware, as well as I'd like to, make sure the council can address some of the questions I'm about to raise. But obviously, for the past 6 or 8 months, thanks to the leadership of Council President Sexsmith, we have been working towards developing standing committees, and we in fact issued a resolution in December of last year stating that we'd have a number of meetings that would be focused on standing committee meetings versus, separately, we'd have council business meetings. And more or less, we're splitting each month, one council meeting, one standing committee meeting. A couple months, we'd have one meeting or whatever. At the time, and even at the workshop prior to that resolution, I had raised concerns that I had regarding the workload of the council in terms of trying to do what we currently do in 2 weeks in 2 meetings, in 1 meeting now per month. But I also, was very open-minded. I was very anxious to learn more about how the standing committees would work. I'm no longer comfortable. I am comfortable with standing committees. I really applaud the work Council President Sexsmith did. And I think it could be a very effective means of, helping move progress across where we used to have liaisons across all the different commissions and committees in town. However, and I expressed this concern to Councilman Sexsmith yesterday, I actually have concerns about moving to 1 council business meeting per month. And what I would like to propose, and I'd at least like to ask others to discuss this, is could we retain typically 2 council meetings per month and have standing committees, but have those standing committees, these are committees of 2 council members, so they can meet without necessarily, and probably would meet without public review or participation. However, when they bring their recommendations to the broader council, I think they could do that, those committees, subcommittees, standing committees, they could do that as we hold workshops today, as part of a standard council meeting. So, I'm not in favor of this resolution, but before we vote yay or nay, I was wondering if we could consider a motion in which, and I'll make the motion, could we change this resolution to basically acknowledge we'll have the standing committees go into effect. If it's July 12th, I'm not quite sure why we couldn't do it sooner, but I guess I'm less concerned about the date. I would just rather the standing committees meet, independent of the council business meetings, then we report out during council business meetings as workshops or as council comments. And we instead agree to maintain 2 council meetings per month, business meetings, unless of course there are circumstances where we decide 1 meeting is appropriate. So I know I said a lot. I would like to hear others' opinions, but I just think we might have over-engineered the process for standing committee meetings. And in so doing, I'm afraid we might have underestimated the amount of time we need for council business meetings.
So Councilman Gubitosi, as I told you yesterday, we can certainly look at that. The purpose of this resolution is really just to clean up the way we termed the first meetings of the month. There's nothing in our ordinances that talk about liaisons. There's nothing in our ordinances that talk about committees, except that the mayor gets to appoint members of the committees. So we can do that going forward tomorrow if we decide that's what we want to do. I appreciate you're not trying to, that we may have over-engineered the process, but I suspect you're over-engineering the solution.
Again, Council President, I think the solution should remain 2 council meetings a month and work the standing committees as we currently do liaison assignments.
And we can do that, whether we pass this resolution or not. This resolution is just changing the terminology that we use to address half the meetings of the year, from being committee meetings to being regular working meetings. And from there, we can try and resolve a process to use the standing committee process to feed into things, as you discussed with me yesterday and Councilman Bonnell discussed with me this morning.
So I guess I understand we're changing the nomenclature, but it seems like it's somewhat of a moot point if we all agree that we'd be better served with 2 council business meetings per month. So rather than do what this started out to do, could we amend this to simply say council business meetings will be on these dates, move the dates on the left column over to the right column, and that might be the end of it. We just, we keep it in effect July 12th. Again, I'm asking the question. That would be my preference, but I'd like to hear from the mayor, from Councilman Weber and Bonnell as well.
Yeah, I guess my view of this right now is that I certainly heard what you said, and I have to process a little bit more. I think the intent was to have standing committees meet offline and develop recommendations based on the direction that we were going as a community. So that I thought was always in place, and then it would come to a formal meeting. I think what I'm hearing you say is that we don't believe we need that much time for that. And I guess in a formal meeting,
right?
I guess my and the reason I think we said we would do a resolution for the first 6 months of 2022, if we were ready in January, was that we could make that adjustment once we start exercising the process, which we hadn't done yet. So, whereas I think certainly it has any comments like that have merit, and we should exercise them. I just think it might be premature to say, let's do it this way at this point. Not saying we shouldn't talk it through and kind of simulate it. I'm not saying that at all. I think it's appropriate to do that. I've been as open as anybody to say what will work and not work. I initially started kind of this draft process, and because of my workload, handed it off to Councilman Sexsmith, trusting that we're going to have a good open conversation about this going through. So my only point, Councilman Gubitosi, would be to let's talk this through and make sure it makes sense, and then we can always change. Dates are an easy thing to change. So that'd be my input.
Okay, Councilman Weber.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been in favor of the standing committee meeting process, but I never thought it would mean that we move away from 2 meetings a month. I mean, when that was first proposed, I was like, okay, we can try it, but I don't think it's mutually exclusive. We could have 2 meetings a month and still go to the standing committee process, which I feel like we've been talking about for a long time. And then, I'm not sure the rationale, but by this for the whole second half of the year, we only have one meeting a month, and I just feel like that's not going to be enough. I mean, and I'm not clear on why under the council business meeting column in this resolution, like, why is there only one meeting in May and one meeting in June?
No,
July,
John, there's a
sorry.
revised resolution. I'm so sorry. I did email it to you.
Oh, so it has, so
I feel that was my error, but I did.
that's fine. All right.
It's through the
So,
website.
So there is 2 in May and there are
Yes.
2 in June.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, there are.
That's good, but again, I'm kind of asking the same question as Councilman Gubitosi. Why can't we just have 2 council business meetings a month and make the reports from the standing committees part of that meeting? And again, fully in support of the standing committee meeting process, but just make it part of a regular council meeting.
The reason behind it, as we talked about through a bunch of workshops last year, was to try and make regular council work meetings, like this, a little more efficient and effective. So when we do the debate offline at the committee meetings, then when we come here, we're all aligned as far as what we're doing. We step through it, we vote for it, we hear public comment, we vote for it or vote against it as we may, and just move on. That was the purpose of trying to investigate this process. If we're going to go back to doing all the committee meeting stuff during the working meetings, there's no point in having committees. We'll just, it's the same as where we're at today.
Tim, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we can have those committee meetings and work out all the stuff, as you say, but still have 2 council meetings a month. And
no, if we're having the subcommittee meetings, that's 2 people, right? And the purpose of having the working meeting, the committee meeting, whatever you want to call it, was to get consensus amongst everybody so that we would have 3 people who said yay or nay, and then we could move forward with it. So at a regular working meeting, we didn't get into a lengthy debate about whether something was capitalized improperly or there was the wrong comma someplace. That was really the genesis behind all of this. If we're going to go back to having workshops at the beginning of the meeting to talk about the stuff that have been done offline by liaisons or by standing committees, then we're doing what we're doing now. So, make it all 2 meetings a month and we'll just continue on.
Okay, I feel like there's a third way, like to have the standing committees and have those discussions and still have 2 council meetings a month, and have those, the report out from those committees at the council meeting. I think that makes sense. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. And plus, I'd rather get going with the standing committee sooner than July, but that's a different issue, and I won't muddle.
Yeah, I guess the other point, as we were going through this, Councilman Weber, we did hear from people that had used this process. I know from Kim, from Greg, from Councilman Cannon, from Business Administrator Humphrey, from some other people from other towns that said, yeah, this is what we do. And they were able to have a pretty effective and efficient business meeting monthly. And that's, I think, why we said we think we can do this. It was based on the input that other towns do it this way and it works. I'm not diminishing your challenge, but I'm just saying that was my recollection of why we thought we could do it 1-on-1. That was what I thought I heard.
Randy, any thoughts you have?
Well, given a lot of thought, talked to a lot of people, and I think we need 2 business meetings a month. There's no reason to limit committee meetings to once a month. I said to several people over the last week, as a liaison, sometimes I met with DPW every week, sometimes more, sometimes less. I don't think the committee meetings need to be limited. I think they need to be open to whoever the 2 council people are and the departments. If they feel they need to do 3 committee meetings in a week to figure something out, then that's what they need to do. And that really shouldn't have any bearing on business meetings. The business meetings should go on as they have, twice a month. We can still report at the second meeting in the month. We don't have to have a report from the committee the first meeting in the month. So that kind of eliminates the issue of having a report that's not completely done at two meetings. I don't think that limiting the public interaction by only having one meeting a month is healthy.
I think, I know I had questions, but I was keeping an open mind, all along. And again, I love the concept of the standing committees, but I really have wrestled with this over the last few months, and it kind of came to a head maybe over the past few weeks, as we have heard from the public, they want access to the council, and it just seems like we're heading in the wrong direction if we dramatically restrict the number of council business meetings. So that's really what brought this to a head for me personally. And the more I thought about it, I thought, Council President Sexsmith, I thought what we envisioned using for standing committee meetings, we could do those in the form of workshops where the two council members bring their findings, their observations, their thoughts to the rest of the council in a workshop, just as I think you envisioned, a workshop that would be held in front of the public. So I'm not even sure we're really changing the format that you envisioned all that much. We're just trying to consolidate it into the current structure of business.
The workshop would have been held in public, and
Right.
at your insistence and Councilman Weber's insistence, there would have been public comment at the end of it. So you're not
Yeah.
limiting the public access to the committee, the council. You're not limiting their ability to comment, but
No, thank you for acknowledging it was at my insistence. We absolutely want public comment. We do. I'm just saying, can we accomplish the same goal by having it as a workshop as part of a council business meeting? I'm not sure it's that big of a departure from the original vision.
Well, it's February 8th and we have 2 meetings a month through June. So we can either amend this or vote this and then amend it again once we get a real handle on how we want to proceed. So I would say that we index through that process.
Can we table this, Mr. Mayor? Just because it doesn't seem like we're on the same page. So would that?
Well, the only issue with tabling it, Councilman Weber, is that we're just trying to get the correct title for the meetings basis the 10-4-18. So that was the intent of this resolution, was just to get the labeling of the meeting correct in the near future. We put it out through June to be conservative. If we can do this before that, that'll be great. If we can't, then we don't have to do it again. So that was the intent, because we have a meeting on March 8th that would be, by the letter of the law, not labeled correctly. So that's why we were putting this in place. That was the only reason, is to clean it up temporarily. So the intent wasn't to re-engineer anything between doing this. It was just to clean up the labeling for the meeting until we did get ourselves in a position where we do the resolution to do the standing committees and change the dates and change the labeling and get everything correct as we can get it, given the fact that there's different interpretations of what is correct.
So if we get the labeling right if we pass this and to get the labeling right, can we revisit the issues that Councilman Gubitosi brought up?
Absolutely. I would actually welcome that, and I think that's appropriate. Absolutely.
I said that to him yesterday. I said that to Councilman Bonnell this morning.
Well,
yeah.
Randy and Al, does that work or no?
Yeah,
to get the labeling right. It seems to be about getting the labeling right. And I was,
If I could for just a second.
Please.
So I fully understand the substance of what you guys are talking about, and that's an issue for, it appears, July after this resolution. But this corrects the ones in the meantime that we thought we were going to have that we're not going to have. So when I respect everyone's position and stuff, but we really need to correct the labels after all the discussions you've heard.
And Mr. Cannon, to correct the labels, we're taking meetings such as the mayor just mentioned, March 8th, which was apparently designated standing committee, and we're moving that meeting and perhaps an April meeting into the right-hand column.
Correct. That's correct. That's all this was intended to do. But the
So-
subsequent conversation, I have zero issue with that. I think it's appropriate and healthy.
Erica's been posting individual notices because the annual resolution had them as standing committees.
Right.
So
That's
this
the other
corrects
thing.
all of them
Plus
through
there's money.
July, so it gives you to July to figure out the other answer.
I am, I'm 100% supportive of maintaining 2 council business meetings a month. I can certainly pass this to change the names, and then maybe in our next meeting, at least have a workshop, if not introduce a new resolution to change all of the names.
If I could offer, I mean, you could amend it to change it up to July and leave the rest until you figure that out. But we need to get forward here on the correct labels. Erica's nodding her head yes.
Mhm.
So if you even if you do half the resolution, that's fine with me and Erica for the moment, because July you guys haven't decided anyway at this moment anyway, given the other issues raised. But we need the ones in the near future corrected so Erica doesn't have to redo it every time. Right, Erica?
That's correct, Greg. Thank you.
So I think we're aligned reasonably. So I'll make a motion to pass 2022-62. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell,
Yes.
Mr. Gubatose,
Yes.
Mr. Sexsmith,
Yes.
Mr. Weber,
yes.
Mayor Fox.
Yes. Okay, good conversation, good discussion. I appreciate the candor and the concern. We are, I lost my place. Okay, announcements. We have no announcements tonight. So we'll go to mayor and council reports followed by public comments. I can start. So January, we had quite a challenging month from a weather perspective. I think our public works, our police department, our OEM group, and our residents worked together, particularly on the last storm. Frankly, we had an after action review, which is it's a military term for after an engagement, you look at what you did well and not so well. And we had that with about 10 people in police, public works, OEM, et cetera. And we did identify a persistent problem, that being the lack of conformance to the parking restrictions we put in place. Part of that is, and I got emails from some of our older population and a few handicapped, and said it's a real struggle to make that switch during the middle of the storm. So we're going to seek out some more feedback, and we're probably going to steal shamelessly from a couple of towns. Ocean Township and Shark River Hills currently have these volunteer squads that are organized to assist residents that are in need of help during a storm, which I think's a great idea. So, we'll have to get that organized, and we're talking to OEM right now about putting a model together to do that. So hopefully we'll get something on that before the next storm. So stay tuned. But I do compliment everybody who worked pretty hard to get us passable roads and a safe environment. We're going to continue to be vigilant around COVID. I just want to make that comment. Yesterday, we had a vaccination clinic next door. It's our second vaccination clinic. I'm hoping we were vying for a testing clinic. I'm hoping in the near term there's no need for it, but we're going to continue to focus on those those things. And we just have to keep a focus and keep the public information on that squared away. As it relates to the Lorraine Avenue Church analysis, our first big deliverable on that comes next week, and we'll be reviewing that at a meeting on the 16th of February. As I reported before, we had a resident team that worked with the engineering and architectural firms. We expect to use our February 22nd council meeting, and we might extend the time a little bit. I haven't really spoken to many about that, but to provide that initial report out. It's really one of two reports that are going to come out. This one should be very substantive and should tell us a lot about potential paths forward. So I'm really looking forward to this. T&M, the architectural firm, and DIG, I'm sorry, T&M, the engineering firm, DIG, the architectural firm, will get a final report and a final deliverable to us by the end of the first quarter. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's been a long time coming. Last, there's been an effort well, actually, it's not last. I got a couple other things. To change some of our waste management practices, mostly around recycling and bulk pickup. Clearly, there were some communication process issues. We're investigating those. We're getting corrective action in place to improve that. I think by this week, we're going to have a complete assessment of what went right and wrong, and also trying to look at the plan that was put out and see if we're going to adjust that, which I fully expect we're going to have some adjustments. In the town hall meeting that we held last Thursday, I'll certainly apologize for our Zoom capacity issues. As it turned out, the municipality had less Zoom capacity than I have on my personal account, so we fixed that. I'm happy to report that we've increased that capacity. Shouldn't be a problem going forward. Also, really want to thank people for their participation Thursday evening. And I have had emails since then that I've tried to clarify and answer questions. We did put that recording out on the website. The place to find it is if you go to the calendar on the first page and hit the February 3rd date, you can drill down into a recording of it. We were supposed to have an hour meeting. We had close to an hour and a half, I think, because we wanted to answer every question that was asked. And we did that in that meeting, recognizing that everybody wasn't there that wanted to be there, but hopefully they were able to look at the recording and ask subsequent questions. The questions, comments, and concerns were heard, and we're taking that input as we assess all of our waste management components. I think the final outcome will be not only acceptable, but I think the majority of our residents will be okay with those, and we're trying to refine those, and we've got a little bit more data that we're collecting on a couple of questions that I have around peak levels and some other things like that. On the library, I want to mention that there's a couple good things going on there. February 9th from 3 to 5 p.m. It's take your child to the library day. If you bring your child to the library, they'll get a prize and thank you. While supplies last, there's no registration necessary. February 15th at 1 p.m. there's a webinar about whole body wellness, exercise ourselves. FEMA Hope and Healing Process at RWJ Barnabas Health are sponsoring that. So we encourage people to go to that to discuss ways to help our mental strength as well as our physical bodies. There is registration required for that. Just go to bradleybeachlibrary.org. And then we actually have a couple programs in the works that I know this is a little bit longer, but I want to just mention these things because they're pretty interesting. The library's gotten 2 grants just recently. The New Jersey State Library Partners Grant that works on labor and literacy, gives us a labor and literacy lab. The program is to help improve digital literacy. More details will be coming out on that in the next few months now that we've gotten that grant, and we're going to execute against that. And then the library was also a recipient of one of the American Libraries Association Libraries Transforming Community Grants. And that grant will fund One Beach, One Read for adults. Last year we did the One Beach, One Read for adolescents. And this year, a book's been selected called The High House, which is a book about coastal communities dealing with the impacts of climate change. So that should hit close to home and should be a really interesting program. I participated in Manana Land last year, which was the adolescent one, and it was really a fun, interesting event. So details will follow on that also. That is my report, and I will turn it over to Councilman Bonnell.
So I would also like to thank DPW and police and OEM and everybody for the job they did during the snowstorm. That was great. DPW has been actually hard at work also at the rec center with the help of our new rec center director, Liz Hernandez. I haven't been over there yet, but I'm hearing a lot of good things. So hopefully this summer we got a good program going over there for all the kids, and we won't have to worry about any COVID nonsense. We can live our lives freely and have events at the rec center. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Gubitosi. Where is he? There he is. Al,
Al, you're muted.
You're on mute, Al.
Thank you. I got it. For starters, I'd like to just thank the residents who spoke earlier today about their questions about the executive session. Don Greenberg, Nancy Meadow, TJ Cohen. Don't know if anyone else raised questions, but what you guys don't know is the questions you asked tonight are questions I was asking of the mayor, of our BA, of our attorney, largely the same reasons. I wanted to make sure that the criteria enumerated in the Sunshine Law are, that this was aligned. These reasons for executive session were aligned. I actually want to thank Mr. Cohen in a way. It's similar maybe to Mr. Cannon's expressed gratitude for his challenges and his willingness to meet him for breakfast. But he has really heightened my own awareness. I will say I'm probably guilty of not in the past questioning the agenda. When we had an executive session, I would see whatever the titles were and I would go into the executive session to learn more. So because of Mr. Cohen's persistence and lawsuits, I have made much more of an effort myself to at least ask very similar internal questions, because I do believe we owe it to the public to make sure we are following OPRA, Open Public Meetings Act, and I'm trying very hard to make sure that as a council we're all discussing how those 9 criteria in the Open Public Meetings Act, the Sunshine Law, align with whatever topics we're presenting. So I thought the questions that were asked were very appropriate. I am comfortable following Mr. Cannon's advice that we can move forward because this could influence personnel related decisions, but I'm going to keep a very open mind and open awareness of the fact that things that should be discussed in public should be discussed in public, and I for one will be much better educated thanks to all of your efforts and all of your questions. The other super huge thing that I have to address is what's taken place over the last week or so. I know last week was a challenging one for a lot of our residents and certainly our mayor and our council president and our BA and our supervisor of public works all joined a town hall meeting to try to help explain some of the circumstances and some of the potential follow-up to the public. I've nonetheless, because as a member of the broader council, I was not able to attend, nor were Mr. Bonnell or Mr. Weber. I actually have prepared a couple minutes of comments that I want to make sure I share with the public for the public record. And I'll start right here with these past weeks have caused large numbers of our residents to raise concerns about our government, especially with the double whammy that we experienced last Thursday evening, encompassing 2 separate meetings. The first one was the planned executive session, which failed due to improper notice. And the second was the same evening, the town hall meeting, where, as I mentioned, the representatives of the borough met regarding recycling changes And the challenge with, to me, the challenge with that particular town hall effort, and I applaud the mayor for trying, was one, the council wasn't permitted to attend. Two, resident access inadvertently was capped. Yeah, we all recognize that now at 100 attendees. And finally, and maybe most disturbing to me, was that many of our residents voiced dismay at the fact that their government is not listening. I did review the video afterwards. A lot of the comments were very consistent. The residents are rightfully upset. They see our government, our council, as not serving the public, but instead, at times at least, dictating to them. And across Facebook sites, there were well over 200 comments. I read through them, expressing frustration and anger. The following are 3 representative comments from residents who posted on Facebook sites. One of the comments was regarding lawsuits. They wrote, "Thank you for bringing this to light. It is critical that the public be informed of decisions in public session rather than after, and this appears to have been deliberately withheld from the public. Why? I don't understand. I am sure there are tough decisions, but just be straight with us and give us the facts. I applaud the actions of those who have taken the mayor and council to task for not following the law. This is but one issue. Who knows what other decisions are going to be made without our knowledge?" And as I read that, I said, ouch, followed by another, I think, representative comment. The next 2 actually were related to recycling. The first one, "It's only been a little over a year and they fired a volunteer, parens, sending a very demoralizing message to the community and setting a poor tone, close parens. Had inappropriate closed-door meetings to discuss selling our DPW building, did away with bulk pickup and lessened recycling pickup from every week to every other week. Have I missed anything? I've never felt the need in 53 years to become personally involved with running of my town, ... until now." And the third comment I want to read, because again, I think this gives everyone a flavor for what's been all over social media. It was also related to the recycling town hall. "Wow, I'll say one thing. The fact that I am even getting aggravated about small town politics is because it's in absolute chaos, it seems. Never did I get involved or care to know much. In this past year, I have only heard of this or that being done without anyone knowing. Stripes on Newark Avenue, selling of town property, recycling change, workshops not open to the public, limiting public comment to 3 minutes, not answering questions, doing things without town council even hearing about it. Something about our water company, period, ignores social media in 2022, period." I'm not even sure what all that meant. And I'm not going to say that all of that is completely accurate, but what is very concerning is that this is how a resident feels about our council. Again, these are just 3 out of hundreds of comments. I want the public to know that the council is hearing them. We are hearing your concerns loud and clear, and please keep in mind that the council is comprised of 5 human beings, each of whom have different personalities, different perspectives, and sometimes different ideas of how best to serve Bradley Beach. We generally try to work together, and we generally try to demonstrate a consistent front. However, our government is comprised of 2 parts, a legislative branch and an executive branch. So the question should be, what are you, Councilman Gubitosi, going to do about these concerns? Simply said, as one of 5 legislators, I cannot infringe upon the powers of the chief executive, the mayor. That's not my job. That's the mayor's job. I can attempt to influence the council, which includes the mayor, as well as my other colleagues, to consider changes to our ordinances and to our processes. These legislative changes will assure that the council better serves the public. To do this, we must improve public access to the entire council, and we must listen better when the public speaks. And a simple example of this is the conversation you heard us go through earlier, where I'm now firmly resolved that we should have 2 meetings, 2 council meetings, business meetings per month. As individuals or as an entire council, we may not always agree with each resident's opinion, but each resident should have the opportunity to voice their opinion before significant decisions affecting our community are made. In order to achieve these objectives, I, Alan Gubitozzi, pledge to do the following two things over the next month. One, increase the use of public workshops, and two, propose changes to current ordinances and processes that will better engage the public. For example, I will advocate for public workshop topics to include recycling and solid waste pickup. I don't believe this discussion is finished yet. Two, provide information regarding the Methodist Church property, which the mayor just alluded to. I may not have to advocate very hard for this one, and possible community center planning. Three, review the 2021 planning board recommendations, which were made at the end of last year, including whether or not hotels should be considered a prohibited use. Four, discuss a process by which to evaluate our planned investment of between $12 and $15 million in sewer system infrastructure repairs versus alternatives such as a possible, underline possible, sale of the sewer system. Five, developing capabilities to allow Zoom access to the public for all meetings. Again, thank you, Don Greenberg, for teeing that up earlier. Six, evaluate energy aggregation opportunities for Bradley Beach. Seven, discuss potential alternatives for our DPW location. Many of you have referenced that in your comments, that was unknown to the residents, that we were at least considering alternatives. The mayor did address that last meeting, saying that, you know, we have had some public discourse, but I think it is time for us to have a more focused discussion for the public's benefit. And finally, I just added this to my list, what I said earlier about maintaining 2 council business meetings per month. Other workshop topics will be identified and shared with the public regularly. As I mentioned, I also pledge to propose changes to our ordinances for the entire council to consider and for the public to review with us. These changes will focus upon expanding public access and feedback, not restricting it. I won't share details tonight, but you will soon see these possible amendments discussed openly with this council. To those residents who speak out at meetings and for those who speak out in social media, whether you agree with me or not, thank you. Please continue to remind us that we serve you, the public. If you are not receiving the information you need, please continue to hold us accountable. Thank you.
Is that okay? That's the end of your report. Thank you, Councilman.
That is.
Council
Sorry.
President Sexsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the report from the fire department, for the period ending February 8th, the department responded to 20 requests for the department and 1 request for a lift assist from EMS. On the 27th, the department was dispatched to a structure fire on Ocean Park Avenue involving 3 buildings. The box alarm was struck, bringing in our mutual aid response and both ambulances from our EMS. On January 28th, the department went on standby for the expected snowstorm and continued operations until 7 p.m. on the 29th. The firehouse was staffed by 2 rotating crews of 5 firefighters on both days for a total of 12 firefighters participated in the standby, working in conjunction with the first aid squad, who relocated to the firehouse with 1 ambulance and a standby crew of 3 EMTs. For the first aid squad, for the period ending for the period ending February 8th, the squad responded to 13 day calls, 25 night calls for a total of 38. 20 were for medical, 18 were fire calls. There was 1 answers call, which to assist with a water rescue in Avon. On the 27th, the squad was called out for a multiple structure fire on Ocean Park Avenue, where they stood by with 2 ambulances staffed with 3 EMTs each. And on the 28th, they relocated 1 ambulance to the firehouse for standby during the expected snowstorm. As always, the fire department and the first aid squad are looking for volunteers. We've done very well over the last couple of years attracting new volunteers for whatever reason, but the need is still there. There's free training for qualified individuals, and the application is on the borough website. As far as the police activity report, the police investigated the cause and origin of a structure fire that affected properties located at the intersection of Ocean Avenue and Ocean Park Avenue. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Councilman Weber.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to the fire department. That fire on Ocean Park was a doozy, and on obviously a super cold night, super windy night. It's obviously always the way it goes. We had a lot of help from other towns, but our guys were on it, so good for them. I too want to talk about the snowstorm, but everyone always wants to focus on the roads. But what I think one of the things that makes Bradley Beach a great town is its walkability. Every property has a sidewalk, and they actually lead somewhere. And I want to remind people that every kid in this town that goes to our school walks to school. There are no buses. Okay, if you're lucky, maybe your mom drops you off, but it's kind of disappointing to me as a parent. You know, we had a snowstorm on a Saturday, and on Monday my kids walking to school, and it's barely 2.5 blocks, and they have obstructed sidewalks, and they got to walk out into the middle of a road, and that's an icy, slick road where cars are sliding all over the place, and that's not a good situation. So for the next meeting, I would love to see an accounting of how many citations were written for people not shoveling their sidewalks, because I think we obviously have to do a better job on that. Naturally, moving on to the recycling and trash discussion, naturally, I would have liked for this town to have a discussion about the level of services we're providing for trash and recycling pickup and bulk items, because I'm a sitting councilman and because I'm a person that puts out his own recycling and his own trash. I'm disappointed this was not discussed with the council or workshopped. I'm disappointed that our environmental commission was not consulted, since our environmental commission has historically been full of people who work for environmental groups and who may have had ideas and opinions about this. I'm also, concerned that I was personally not consulted on this. I work for an environmental group. I deal with solid waste management issues for all of my adult life. Could have been some value there. So if we had such a discussion, I would have said something like the following. So if staff time is an issue, and I understand that is the problem, the first thing I would suggest to get rid of is our plastic film recycling program. We get no money for that material that we collect, and we never have. That program is all cost and no revenue. Now, I brought that program to the town along with the SC Johnson Company, that company covered all the costs of the program for the initial year, and that was from November 2019 to November 2020. SC Johnson brought us an extra Kubota. They covered the cost of once a month pickup, covered our staff time and fringe, and I imagine, gas and things like that. It would have made sense to reevaluate this program after a year. I got no indication at the council level that there were concerns about staff time or workloads or cross-training at DPW or anything like that. So we didn't take a look at this film recycling program. I think it would be fine if we left a dumpster at the DPW yard for plastic film, if we maintained the film recycling only cans in the borough buildings, which I believe they still exist. And by the way, I think those cans should be audited to make sure that just plastic film is going in them and not other items like trash and other recyclables. So I would say first thing that could have gone was a curbside pickup of the plastic film. And if that meant saving our weekly regular recycling, I would have been all for that. It could have been part of the puzzle. I put out more recycling than trash. I have a family of 4. I would have love us to look at skipping that second trash collection each week. I heard from a number of people that feel the same way. I think we should look into this and run the numbers. The cost savings maybe would be the same, but a lot of towns have a different trash schedule in the winter than the summer, and the difference is fewer trash pickups in the winter. One change that could have a major impact on the revenue side of the equation for recycling is going back to dual stream recycling. At times, this town, we've paid more to get rid of a ton of recyclables than we pay to get rid of a ton of trash. Right now, we're paying about $85 a ton to get rid of trash and $78 to get rid of recyclables. The reason recycling is so expensive is because of the single stream system. There are huge capital costs and machinery and labor involved in separating out everything that you put into your recycling can. They have to separate it all out mechanically before they can make bales and sell the finished product. So essentially, we're paying money to get rid of this stuff instead of getting money for valuable resource. Now, dual stream means one stream that would be paper, cardboard, newsprint, and then another stream that's metal, glass, and plastic, cans, bottles, and containers. Interestingly, the town of Montclair, New Jersey, never changed. They never went to single stream recycling, and they could not have been happier all these years. While, when China made their policy, they're not accepting American recyclables anymore. All of us towns were in misery. That's when we started paying more than we are for garbage in some cases. A bunch of towns never switched, and they're happy as could be. Bridgewater and Hoboken, big towns that changed back to dual streams, they're doing this because they're getting paid for the paper stream of their dual stream recycling, and they're paying much less than that $78 a ton for the cans and bottle streams. So there could be a savings there. If we went to dual stream, we could probably keep weekly recycling pickup. It's just that one stream would be this week and another stream would be on another week. But if we're saving, who knows, tens of thousands of dollars, I think it should be explored. We should look into this. Now, of course, if we went dual stream, there might be an investment in equipment needed, but not necessarily. Again, it's all these things need to be part of a discussion that I think we should absolutely have. Now on bulk pickup, really bummed out, like I said, that our environmental commission wasn't consulted. I think they would have had a lot of ideas on how to reduce this. Here are mine, and everybody needs to remember there's 3 R's, reduce and reuse. That's before recycle. So this is where the human element, people, environmental professionals, we can really help people reduce the amount of garbage they have in the first place, and then also reuse things that are reusable. So a couple random ideas just from me. I would say the town should form a relationship with a junker. What's a junker, you may ask? That's one of those guys with the pickup truck that drives around looking for scrap metal items. So instead of buying stickers and putting stuff on the curb or bringing it to DPW, the town or somebody could just send a text to our local junker. And if you're throwing out your gas grill, or you're throwing out a metal filing cabinet or a metal bed frame, great, let the junker come take it to the metals recycling place, which is just blocks from our town across Memorial. If we need to cut down on bulk trash, we could use our communication channels to do things like encourage residents to put a free sign on any usable item that they're discarding. Some people already do this. They put it out a day before they go and get the stickers in hopes that it'll go away. We could really encourage everybody in town to do that. That's less bulk for our DPW to pick up. And we could definitely encourage this more broadly. I'd love to see an area at the DPW yard, and I think a large shed that locks would do, where a resident could bring a reusable item that they no longer wanted. Nothing broken, nothing, junk or trash, but if you didn't want this usable item anymore, you could put it there, put it in the free shed, and then anybody could come and pick up something from the free shed. And if something's been sitting in the free shed for a week or two, well, then we chuck it as bulk. But I think we get reduce a lot of bulk that way. You could have the Environmental Commission research different ways that bulk materials and trash are dealt with in other towns. I've heard, here's a couple anecdotes. You can encourage people to do a curb alert saying, put it out there on social media that you just put a good usable couch on the curb. Give the address, somebody comes and picks it up. Better than driving around town looking for it. In some towns, they've started Facebook groups. In Manahawkin and Stafford Township, there's a buy, sell, trade Manahawkin Facebook group. It's run by a private citizen, not the town. It has 9,000 members. There's another one for Long Beach Island. It has closer to 10,000 members. So, if you want to get rid of an old piece of furniture you didn't need, and you could just put a picture of it on a Facebook group, and there's 9,000 people that potentially could see it. I mean, I think that's a pretty good way to deal with our bulk. Again, this is for usable items. We can encourage people to donate their furniture to the local Habitat for Humanity. It's right there in Asbury Park. They take good, usable, used furniture. The town of Montclair, again, they have held repair cafes, meaning they get some kind of expert to come in and shows you how to repair something so you don't have to throw it out. Maybe it's a lawnmower, maybe it's something like a sewing machine. And if you're the owner and you don't want to learn how to fix it, well, you can still put it on your curb, and there's that repair workshop. Somebody else learns how to fix it, and then they take it off the curb. And again, less bulk for our DPW to deal with. Some towns have tool libraries. So instead of buying a new tool that you maybe are only going to use once, you check it out of the tool library, and then you don't eventually have to throw it away. Kind of works like a library book, library system. So these are just some ideas off the top of my head. However, I think it really makes sense that we look at this situation. I think some of this pain is self-inflicted. If anybody asked me, I would never say that we should be picking up bulk at the curb and putting in the truck with their garbage. My suspicion is that when we went to dump that stuff, then they saw that there was bulk in there. They didn't charge us the regular rate, which was like about $85 a ton. They probably charge us closer to $130 a ton, which is the bulk rate. So I think there's a lot of things we can do. And, people might be criticizing anything I've said right now in their minds. But remember, I got no information about these changes. So I'm giving out all this information without having any information from the town. The point is that there's many things that residents can do to help with these first two R's, reduce and reuse. And that would really help us cut down on the amount of bulk. Hopefully people who made these decisions will, to take away our services, they take some notes and they can have some conversation about these things. I heard there's going to be an investigation on the communication. I hope that investigation calls up the Environmental Commission, because they should be consulted. I hope that investigation calls up me as the liaison, because we certainly would have something to say about this. Now, professionally, I work for an environmental group. We do things like we fight for laws. There's such a thing as a right to repair law. This is like a law that says, hey, big companies, you can't just make cheap crap that when it breaks, people have to throw it away. You have to make it in such a way that they have the right to repair it, and there's a way that they can get it repaired. There's laws in many states like this. New Jersey just passed a recycled content law, which means that there's going to be a certain amount of recycled content in consumer products. So when you go to buy a container of laundry detergent, pretty soon that bottle is going to have to contain 15% post-consumer recycled plastic, and that's going to ratchet up to 50%. So I think with efforts like this, as a state, as a country, whatever, we've actually turned a corner. Recycling reached rock bottom in the last few years. I believe there are bright days ahead for recycling. There's going to be good markets for this stuff. The law that I just talked about, the idea is not just to use recycled plastics, it's to strengthen the markets. So we're not paying so much to get rid of a ton of stuff that contains a lot of plastics. Let's make a market for that plastic so it's worth something. So we either have to pay a little bit less, or maybe one day, who knows, we might get actually paid for dumping a ton of recyclables off at the yard. So this is all coming from a place where, I want to hear more from residents, want to hear from residents in a public forum. But these are just some ideas that I had on that subject. So believe it or not, I'm not done, but I just got a couple other real quick items. People remember at the last meeting, I did object to an ordinance because a public hearing on an ordinance, because there's only a 3-minute limit on hearing the public. I just want to explain myself on that, because I actually went into our ordinance book and I looked, and I was very surprised to see that the time limit of 5 minutes was actually written into our ordinance book. So we do 5 minutes for the public section at the beginning of the meeting on any agenda item. We do 5 minutes for the end of the meeting when people can talk about anything. That seems like we've made the standard 5 minutes, so why not make it 5 minutes also for an ordinance introduction? And I'd be perfectly willing to say we've been doing it wrong for a year. So I'm in favor of, let's just make it 5 minutes whenever the public can speak, and not limit it to 3 on ordinance introductions. As far as
Councilman,
groups in town that I lead,
Councilman, just a point on that. It's actually it's ordinance adoptions, not introductions. Just to
intros,
correct the record.
adoptions, okay, but you get the point. That's no problem. I think it's fair the way we hear.
Well, I
from
just
public
want to
for-
get the record straight.
for 5 minutes. No problem. No, that's a good correction. Friendly amendment, Mr. Mayor, no problem. So around town, the Environmental Commission, they're getting us a letter of support with recommendations on the energy aggregation program. We should have that soon. I appreciate their work on that. The rec meeting was moved from last Thursday. I don't know if it was moved because of the town hall meeting, but nonetheless, I did not make that, and I don't have a recreation update, well, because it hasn't happened. Except that there's been lots of repairs to the recreation building itself, as you've heard, so appreciate DPW's work on that. Can't wait to see those improvements. On shade tree, as you know, we changed the shade tree ordinance to say that the code enforcement folks will be the ones dealing with the violations of the shade tree ordinance. I do want to ask if that's happened yet, if the borough administrator can say if that's actually happened yet. If I haven't put her to sleep yet, she's there, still there.
No,
Kim?
I'm not
Hi.
asleep. I'm still here. No, not at all. We haven't worked on really many ordinance changes at this point. We had the ones from the beginning of the year, and I'll be working with the Borough Council I have a couple of different changes that we need to update.
No, maybe you misunderstood. I said we already changed the shade tree ordinance to say that the code office will be the ones that will be
Oh,
following up
that's
on.
already been implemented, yes.
I understand. So are you saying that the code folks are out there giving violations if there's a violation on shade tree issues?
They are directed to do so. I don't have a number of how many violations have been given or summonses, but yes, when we are given an issue, they follow up with it through the code department. And I believe that, we still have to review some things as well. I believe that there were other items that we had to review to amend the ordinance as well. Once we get the committee meetings going, I think that we will work on it then.
Well,
Also,
love to
I
have
don't-
them sooner rather than later.
Councilman Weber, also, I don't think that we've actually had occasion to issue a summons yet. Something like the summons is the last part of the process. Actually, it's the borough's obviously last resort.
Sure, no, I
I don't think
understand.
they've actually issued it, but they are interfacing.
Yeah, and my understanding is the first step is the notice of violation. So I was just wondering if that even any of those had happened. There aren't a lot. I won't say there's a lot, but I think there's a couple. And Shade Tree was asking. So okay, so now finally some news that people can use. I want to let them know they should look out for some potholes. There are some doozies out there. If you're on Memorial and you're turning on to Lorraine, there's a axle braking pothole, so please be careful or go slow. There's a couple other big potholes on Memorial, so just take it easy out there. And finally, I have a gift card to Applebee's, and I would be happy to donate it to Mr. Cohen and Mr. Cannon so they could go have lunch. I think it's about halfway. So let's to see that happening in the near future. And that's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Weber. Thank you too for letting me, or actually to the Environmental Commission. I spoke at length with them yesterday, got some feedback, and also provided them some insights as to what those changes in recycling and bulk were. So I think we had a pretty healthy conversation. Just another point, we did hold it, as I said, hold a town hall meeting to try to clarify and get feedback, so to develop that information, and we are using that information right now. We certainly want to look into any ideas that could be helpful to us, and I see it as an ongoing process of getting to somewhere with all of this over a period of time. I think the changes that were proposed are we were initially a step, but we really need to look at this as a long term, but also deal with the short term. So, beyond that town hall, it may make a lot of sense, and I'll certainly seriously consider having a workshop, a public workshop that we could all talk about where we are and where we think we need to go. And certainly, I understand that the council is committed to solving this, as am I. So I appreciate all that input. With that, I think we can turn to the number 14, which is public comments on the agenda. Yeah, Nancy Meadow, Ms. Meadow.
Thank you. Ocean Park condos. Is there anyone else? I noticed that the mayor's background is the meeting room. Is there anyone else in there? Can you hear me?
Mr. Mayor, I think that's a question for you.
Yeah, we have a police representative here in case there's a question for the police.
Great, thank you for letting us know that, which we should know up front. So, first of all, the night that Mr. Weber so eloquently called the doozy with the fire, my gas was cut off that night. I had no idea till I came home late Friday afternoon, which is the day of the evening that the blizzard would start, that I had no heat and my meter had been locked. And I do want to thank Mr. Cafone for trying to intercede with the gas company so that I could have gas and heat during that blizzard, because as we all know, I have no idea what to bring to our emergency shelter. So thank you to the head of DPW. I'd also like to point out that according to tonight's news, Saturday down at the Jersey Shore is going to hit 59 degrees. We have 2 new ramps that cannot be used. I don't get it. And I don't get why we're always given dates and then they're not adhered to. Our leader said, appreciates candor and concern, and yet no action is taken. This is extraordinarily frustrating, not only for myself, but for many people who choose to, or for whatever reasons, cannot advocate for themselves. Regarding the snow, I'm curious, and I guess whoever the police representative could answer this one, how much is the fine for not moving your car during the snowstorm emergency? Anyone have an answer? Okay, well, gee, we don't know that.
I'm trying to get an answer, Ms. Meadow. If you could just hold on a second.
Then I want more than 5 minutes.
We can give the answer afterwards, Mayor.
We can follow up and let you know that, but I think it's, my recollection is it's over $100, but we'll look that up.
Okay, well,
Someone will get back to you with that answer.
Thank you. So we have a figure, and we have at times what was quoted in the paper of 100 cars that weren't moved. So once again, we can conclude that law enforcement did not enforce the law. That cost us extra time with our DPW employees. It cost them, I'm sure, exhaustion and some form of health and wear and tear on our equipment. And I just don't get it. And there are so many solutions, and I bring them up, and yet they're ignored. This information needs to be communicated out there and followed through. We get in our sewer bill something about the Shade Tree Commission. Why isn't emergency stuff in there? And again, why is it always only in one language? I'm delighted that for the few months we're going to have big business meetings. I wished he had listened to me in December and January, because tonight's discussion would have needed to take place. And I mentioned it at the beginning of the meeting. The public doesn't want this. What I would personally find useful, the website, the old one, that was much worse than the current one, did list who was a liaison to what department. I have absolutely no idea. And I'm following up on a conversation that I had at 1 or 2 meetings ago. I don't remember, quite honestly, they are a blur, regarding volunteer opportunities. And I do see on the website there is an application. And quite honestly, it's not acceptable. There's, well, it's very limited, listing just a few opportunities, including of which, and I don't know the legalities here, but you know what? It's 2022. I would think the ladies' auxiliary could be a people's auxiliary, but I guess that's up to them to change their formation, but it's quite offensive. And I remember when the food pantry started. It's near and dear to my heart and to many people's. And I remember running from it with a family, then over to the clothes closet that used to be in the Lorraine Avenue Church to get them clothing. This went on for years. However, no matter how valuable that food pantry is, and it's grown with the times and so important to so many people, it's their lifeline, it is not incorporated under the municipality of Bradley Beach, New Jersey. It is its own 501c3. And where we could link for volunteer opportunity, our volunteering there is not covered by our liability. I get a few minutes more, Erica. And whoever put that stuff up on the website has really opened us up to something. And I know that they hire their own volunteers, and all the volunteers should be through them, not through our website and our application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Meadow. And a number of these items, I'll ensure that Ms. Humphrey gets back to you if there's any follow-ups. Thank you. Mr. Shuck, thank you.
Yes, William Shook, 110 Fifth Avenue, Bradley Beach. Back on December 14th of 2021, Crown Castle provided a proposal for the monopole tower to the borough. At that time, if memory serves me right, we had, I believe, 45 days to respond to them. Did the borough have any discussion with them in reference to this? Where do we stand with Crown Castle?
I do not know. I'm going to ask Kim if she has any backup or.
I can help you, Mayor.
Update.
Yeah.
Oh, you do have it,
Actually have
Greg?
an update for you.
I
Sure.
wasn't sure it was Kim or Greg. I've seen some email.
We work together.
Latest to this.
So it depends on which request from Crown Castle. So there's been an equipment modification, a new equipment request, and then a new lease request. So I believe that the equipment and the modification have been approved and that they're already done and out. And the new lease, they're presently getting us the terms of that. So they know that the 45 days has passed. I have discussed it with them and they are aware that they owe us information and it's still open at this moment.
All right, but there was some wording in there, in their contract, but I don't have that exact wording in front of me, but even Councilman Gutotti.
So Bill, I remember from last time with a discussion related to what kind of equipment was going there, the engineer's review. And so the engineer reviewed that. I think he talked to Mr. Gubitosi or had provided a report, but he addressed those issues. But we're on to the next step, which is that the lease and its terms comply with the master lease. And so they still have not given that to me. That was one of our follow-up requests from the last meeting that you're referencing. And so our engineer did his side, but we're still waiting for their side to answer on the other specific requirements, like the minimum rents and things like that.
And Mr. Kenner, just for the record, I inquired about follow-up at our last meeting, subsequent to the meeting Mr. Shuck's referring to. And even as recently as earlier today, I believe I spoke with our clerk, Erica Kostitz, to ask again for an update. I have not yet heard from an engineer on the questions I had raised, but my understanding is Verizon, I believe it is in the process of switching over their account service team. And my understanding, at least, was that that new person was going to come in, familiarize themselves with our account, and then answer the questions, among others that you're asking. I hope the questions that I was asking as well.
Yes, just one correction, Councilman. It's Dish Network. So forgive me, I didn't know where your end was, but on my end, yeah, same thing. And there is a new account representative who I think will have information according to what they told us for the next council meeting to discuss about the potential lease and all that sort of stuff.
All right, I just have not yet heard answers on the engineering questions that I had asked. So I am still waiting for
Okay,
that.
thank you. I'll talk to Kim about that and we'll figure out exactly So I thought I saw Jerry respond with something, but we'll get it over to you. You haven't got it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shuck. Mr. Greenberg.
You're muted.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My wife told me I was talking too loud last time, so hope everybody can hear me. I'm talking quieter. Getting back to the recycling, don't want to rehash everything that other people said, but touching on one of the things Councilman Weber said about doing trash once a week, it occurs to me that in the summertime, our population goes from about 4,400 to about 30,000, according to the town website. If recycling is down 40%, shouldn't trash be down 40% as well? And I know the mayor had said during the town hall that it was a health and safety issue, but if we're down to 4,400 instead of 30,000, it would seem to me that the trash volume and the number of stops would be down as well. And we could reduce that trash pickup to once a week, at least in the winter. Obviously in the summer, you're going to have to increase it again. But that way you could keep the recycling for once a week and trash once a week. And, that might solve the problem because, about 2/3 of the way into the town hall, Biagio outlined why he wanted to reduce this. And I think his goals are great, getting cross training, keeping the guys in the DPW instead of looking for other jobs. I think that's an admirable and reasonable reason to want to do it. But I just think getting there, there's a different way to get there. And I think that way could be by just reducing trash pickup to once a week. And that's actually about it. And the only other thing I have to say, if Greg's offering to take people out to lunch, I'm in.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg. Let's see if there's anybody else.
Ms. Jonoff?
I flipped to the, sorry, Ms. Jonoff, Ms. Greenblatt.
Thank you. Shauna Greenblatt, Janoff, 414 Monmouth Avenue. I just want to thank both Al Gupitosi and John Weber for their comments. I think it's really important and very meaningful to hear from the councilmen and their perspective on really being shut out, all the councilmen being shut out of something so important as our whole recycling program. And I took some of the wind out of my sails because I certainly had a lot to say. I was one of the unfortunate residents who was not able to get onto the town hall meeting last Thursday. And I believe that there were probably many more comments that were not said, whether they were duplications or other than were said with the 100-person count on that meeting. How the Zoom, town hall Zoom can be put out that way with that limitation after 2 years of understanding how Zoom works is a bit beyond me and a bit embarrassing to see that happened. And I don't know whether it's simply embarrassing or insincere, frankly. That's how I feel. But I do want to thank Al and John for both pointing this out. I think it's really important that they are speaking for the people of Bradley Beach, for the community, for those of us who are living here year round and investing in Bradley Beach. I am pleased to hear what Don just mentioned about that 40% down. If we are indeed 40% down because of our winter, off-season resident population, that means that the recycling is taking less time and the trash pickup is taking less time. There are fewer stops that have to be made, fewer hauls into the cart and so forth. So, I think really this is a clear example of the cart coming before the horse. And to have this kind of discussion in our council meeting, in council comments and in public comments, because so many people didn't really have an in on what was going on, is really something that we have to learn from. So I appreciate that we live in a community that residents are invested in. I am certainly invested. I've had to pull myself off of a number of committees for reasons that were just unfortunate. So as a volunteer, I'm kind of on the sidelines now, but in the meantime, I look forward to the conversation, the workshop about the recycling. Personally, I think we need weekly pickup for recycling. And I look forward to also hearing, how things have been evaluated so we can learn from all the mistakes that have been made in this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Sal. Sal.
Coming on. Hi, Sal Agatuda, 211 Brindley Avenue. Concerning the recycling, listening to Biagio's comments, it makes a lot of sense that you want to be able to save man-hour time from possibly recycling and garbage in order to be able to do other jobs that are necessary and can be done by Public Works. But one of the reasons for doing it that has constantly been brought up is that there's a 40% reduction in the amount of garbage and recycling that's being collected in the off season. But when you're a year-round resident, your garbage and recycling doesn't go down 40%. My garbage and my recycling is exactly the same as it is all year round. Using the aggregate total of garbage or recycling as a reason to look at reducing this doesn't help the year-round resident. I think there are other ways, hopefully, that we can go about finding a solution so that we can free up some man hours in the off season to do the things that Biagio wants to do. But using the aggregate total as a reason just doesn't make sense to me or anybody else who's a full-time resident here in Bradley Beach all year round. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Mary, is it Virtue? Virtue. I'm sorry.
It is. This is James Virtue, Mary's husband, 420 Monmouth Avenue. I just want to second Sal, the previous caller's points about year-round residents. Part-time residents, you don't generate as much trash or as much recycling as the full-time residents. We have a constant amount year-round. We need, and I've heard a couple of opposition or suggestions, we reduce trash to once a week. Definitely very much against that. I would like to see the recycling stay at once a week. And also the suggestion that perhaps we go to the segregation of the various recycling components and investigate whether we can generate some relief by that manner. I think we heard last week that he generates so much trash. Take a trip to the recycling center on the weekend, fold it up, drop it off. That's my spiel.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cohen.
Thomas Cohen, 612 3rd Avenue. Mr. Cannon, I did forward you a template from the Township of Neptune. I CC'd the clerk, and I CC'd the BA, the mayor, and the council president. I believe that's a template that we can review over lunch if you like, and protect Bradley Beach in the future. That being said, I still object to item 15 under NJSA 10:4-12, item 5, matters involving purchases, leases, or acquisition of real property with public funds is covered, but not the sale of public property. So to have a third party come when you can only liquidate property through an RFP or through an open public auction is highly improper, and I still object. I just wanted to make sure I got that on the record, sir. And also, Mayor Fox, I was wondering at J&J, did you review data and reports before making decisions, or did you just make decisions like this?
Yeah. Mr. Cohen, this is comments, not questions.
Oh, okay. Well, let me clear up something from the last meeting. I mean, where I come from, you review data and reports before you make any decision. So I must be a little different than you, but I did want to clarify something. Mr. Cofone referred to you many times as my mayor, my mayor. I just want to clarify that Mr. Cofone lives in Wall Township, where Kevin Oriander is the mayor, and his family enjoys weekly recycling pickup in the township of Wall. So I just want to get that on the record. Kevin Oriander is his mayor. Thank you very much, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I think that's it. So we will now close the public meeting out and move to an executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennell?
Give a
Randy?
thumbs up. He gave a
Okay,
thumbs up.
thank you. Thank you. Mr.
Yeah.
Gubatose?
You're muted, Al.
Give me a thumbs up, Al.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Mr. Sexsmith?
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Just, hey, I'd like to say something. I'm so sorry to interrupt. I was on mute. Just so Mr. Cohen knows, I have one town that I care about, and that's the town of Bradley Beach. I don't care about Wall Township. I pay my taxes. I care about the residents of the borough of Bradley Beach, just so we're all on the same page. I have to make sure I say that. I've been there 26 years. I've given my heart and soul. It's unfair that TJ has to use my name in a borough meeting to try to slander me. It's a joke. I
Not
love this
slandering you,
borough.
sir.
Listen, TJ, I'm not done. This borough is all I care about. I didn't even know who the mayor was of Wall Township, so thank you for telling me. All I care about is the mayor and council of this community that I've worked for 20.
I think we might have lost you.
We were a little off the, little off. We appreciate you, appreciate Mr. Cohen. We're a
Okay,
little-
we have, we appreciate it, Supervisor Capone. Do we have the, I don't, Erica, did you finish the vote on?
I finished the vote.
Yeah,
Mr.
could you
Weber?
please finish?
Yep.
Yes.
Mr. Weber?
Yes.
And Mayor Fox?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, everybody, for
I'm
your
sorry, Mayor, for the-
participation tonight.
Mayor?
Yeah.
For the public's benefit, like I said, the executive session will be about 45 minutes.
Yes.
You're welcome to stay here if we when we return, obviously to close out this meeting. And the contents of the executive session will be available when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Thank you, Counselor. Appreciate it. Okay, thank you, everybody, and have a good evening. Stay warm.